Hey everybody, it's me, Rick Acosta, the Dodger Card Collector, coming to you with another video. It is Thursday night, another late night Thursday night video. I think I'm starting to like them. They're the best times of the night for me to do them. And there was a lot of sports on tonight, so I go, let me watch some games before I come on the air with you guys. I just noticed that the Astros beat the Rangers, so that series is tied at two after four games. And the Diamondbacks won tonight too, so they are down 2 games to 1 against the Phillies. So that's looking pretty interesting. Uh, I went to the Rams game last week against the Arizona Cardinals. That was a load of fun. If you're local and you're in the LA area or in Southern California, I definitely recommend checking out SoFi Stadium if you haven't. It's just a very nice place to go to watch a football game. This weekend, I just got invited last night. My cousin has season seats for the Kings, and the Boston Bruins are in town on Saturday night. So that's going to be fun. We're going to see the Kings and the Bruins over at whatever they call it now. I still call it Staples Center. So NBA season starts next week. I think it's on Tuesday night. And let's see what the Lakers do. Hobby wise is quiet, so I'm going to jump right into what I'm going to show you guys. And that is my two latest pickups from the 1941 play ball set. And stick around till the end because I'm going to ask you guys some questions. I need some help finishing this set, and I want to find out how you guys would go about it. So let me turn the camera around, and we'll take a look at some cards. So my two newest pickups for the 1941 play ball set are Buck McCormick and Babe Dahlgren. Let's talk about Buck McCormick really quick. He played 13 seasons from 1934 to 1948. He primarily played with the Cincinnati Reds. In 1940, he was the National League MVP with 19 home runs, 127 RBIs, 309 batting average. And that same year, the Reds won the World Series in 1940. His 128 RBIs and 209 hits led the National League in 1938, and he was a 9-time All-Star. Now, after his playing career, he was a broadcaster, an announcer, an analyst on WLWT-TV in Cincinnati from 1958 to 1968, before moving back to his hometown and working as the director of ticket sales for the New York Yankees until his death. Now, the next guy I'm going to talk about, I'm going to drop a link because I really learned a lot about this next player, Babe Dahlgren. In fact, to show you how long my commute is, I listened to an hour and 45-minute podcast. I listened to about an hour and a half of it on my commute on Tuesday. And I learned so much about Babe Dahlgren that I wanted you guys to hear it if you guys were interested. I'm going to give you the extreme Cliff Notes version here. And some of you might already know this story, but I didn't know this. Now, I will state the obvious. Babe Dahlgren was the first baseman that replaced Lou Gehrig on May 2nd, 1939. He had a solid season with the Yankees, hitting 15 home runs and having 80 RBIs. Now, this guy kind of ran into some bad luck in more ways than one. He played several years in the Pacific Coast League in the early 30s, and he finally got signed by the Boston Red Sox for 1930. He played there for 2 seasons, 1935 and 1936. He was a first baseman. Unfortunately for him, the Red Sox traded for Jimmy Fox. So Dahlgren got relegated to the bench. And literally, it didn't seem like he had much of a future there. The Red Sox in 36 decided to move Jimmy Fox to the outfield for the last month of the season. Dahlgren got some playing time at first base, and it looked like the plan for 1937 was going to be for Dahlgren to start at first base. But then the Yankees had an issue. Lou Gehrig was holding out on his contract, and nobody knew if he was going to start the 1937 season with the club. So the Yankees traded for Babe Dahlgren, and Lou Gehrig signed right before opening day. So all of a sudden, Dahlgren's like, I'm never going to play with this guy at first base. Well, we all know what happened there. And unfortunately, Lou Gehrig had ALS, and by 1939 was no longer the same player. So As I mentioned to you a moment ago, on May 2nd, 1939, Babe Dahlgren took over for Lou Gehrig at first base and had a really good year. Here's where the controversy kind of starts for this guy. In 1940, during the offseason between 1939 and 1940, Dahlgren returned back to California. He was friends with Lefty O'Doul. I think they were teammates in the Pacific Coast League, or they at least knew each other during that time. Dahlgren wanted to improve his hitting skills a little. Lefty O'Doul, I guess at that point, was like one of the preeminent batters in the league. And they agreed to meet up right before spring training out in San Francisco, I believe. Lefty O'Doul was running some type of camp, and Babe Dahlgren came out and got some pointers, some hitting pointers. Started off the 1940 season with the Yankees, playing great. One thing I didn't mention, he was a solid first baseman. He was arguably one of the best defensive first basemen in the league. And like I said, he was hitting really well. And manager Joe McCarthy noticed this, and he said, "My God, you're hitting. What are you doing differently than you did last year?" And Babe Dahlgren said, "I met up with Lefty O'Doul, and he gave me some tips, some hitting tips." And from that moment on, Joe McCarthy completely changed how he felt about Babe Dahlgren. And if you watch this podcast or watch this YouTube video, it's a podcast and a YouTube video that was put out by the New England chapter, the Northern New England chapter of the Society for American Baseball Research. Like I said, I'll provide a link. Everything changed for Babe Dahlgren at that point. He knew he wasn't going to be on the Yankees much longer. And things would only get worse. McCarthy also, the Yankees did not win the World Series in 1940. They didn't make the World Series. If you listen to Joe McCarthy, he made up stories that Dahlgren's arms were too short and that he made two critical errors that cost the Yankees the American League pennant. And O'Doul was pretty flabbergasted. And here's where he started bouncing around. In 1941, he was with the Boston Braves. He lasted all of 30 to 40 games before they traded him to the Chicago Cubs. Now, he did well with the Cubs, he did so well with the Cubs, they gave him a raise to $11,000 to start the 1942 season. But then that year, he was on the Cubs, he was playing well, they traded him to the Browns. Browns kept him for a few games, they traded him to the Dodgers. The Dodgers wanted to send him to the minors. Here's where the story gets even more interesting. Dahlgren decides for the rest of the 43 season, I don't want to go to the minors, I'm going home. Now, at that point, Branch Rickey takes over the Dodgers in 1943. Larry McPhail had gone to fight the war. And he wanted to meet with Dahlgren. He cut Dahlgren's salary in half to $5,500. And he asked them a question that was a pretty big deal 80 years ago. He asked them, "Babe, are you smoking marijuana?" And Dahlgren just looked at him like he was crazy. But Branch Rickey wanted to know if he smoked marijuana, and Dahlgren said no. They tried to send him to the minors. Dodgers did. Dahlgren met with Commissioner Landis, saying, "I'm not going back to the minors. I've been a veteran ball player for several years, and I'm not going back to the minors. I'm a very good player." So the Dodgers traded him to the Phillies. And he makes the All-Star team. So here's why I'm keeping Buck McCormick's card in here. Buck McCormick was named the starting first baseman for the All-Star team in the 1943 All-Star game. Babe Dahlgren was his reserve. McCormick gets hurt. We're going to fit this guy in here? We are. We're going to add in a guy you've seen before. This is L.B. Fletcher, the first baseman for the Pirates. And instead of making Dahlgren the starting first baseman for the All-Star game, L.B. Fletcher is named the starting first baseman of the All-Star game. And Dahlgren's asking the Cardinals manager, "Why am I not the starting first baseman?" He couldn't give him an answer. Just couldn't. So after that, after the 1943 season, L.B. Fletcher goes to World War II, which means the Pirates are now in need of a first baseman. Babe Dahlgren fits the bill, gets traded over to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Once the war ends, Fletcher comes back. Dahlgren sent packing again into 1946. At the end of the 46 season, he retires as a player. He had some injuries. The interesting things that I wanted to bring up, because I grew up in a small city outside of Los Angeles, California, called Temple City. The town that's right over from us is Arcadia, California. And when Babe Dahlgren retired, he founded Little League Baseball in Arcadia, California in 1950. And one other thing that happened during the 60s, Babe Dahlgren bought a lot of video equipment, and he started filming batters, showing people how to hit, what their batting stance was, what it looked like when they swung. He even got Joe DiMaggio to help out when he was coaching in 1961, I think, for the Yankees. And so he got some good film. He took it to all the owners. None of them were interested except for Charlie Finley. Charlie Finley gave him a job as a batting coach, video instructor. And after a year, he got let go again, and the St. Louis Cardinals were interested, and they kept him for a year. But Babe Dahlgren is like one of the founding fathers of filming players at bats. Now, I brought up to you earlier the Northern New England chapter of SABR, Society for American Baseball Research. They interviewed Matt Dahlgren's grandson, and he wrote a book, The Rumor in Town, which is available on Amazon. Like I said, he explains an hour and 45 minutes of what happened to his grandfather. He was basically blackballed. I don't know if Kennesaw Landis helped him out. Joe McCarthy made up a rumor that he was smoking marijuana. Branch Rickey believed the rumor. And it just seemed to be like all the other owners seemed to believe it as well, because this guy wouldn't last longer than a year on many teams. So if you get a chance, like I said, I left a link, and you could take a look at it. Now, I'm leaving these two cards here because I want to talk to you a little bit about collecting, about the card that we're seeing here. The 41 play ball has distinctive backgrounds, and these two both have colorful backgrounds. These cards are getting hard to get, and I've mentioned that to you over the last few videos. I'm going to go into further detail in a moment here, but the population counts for these cards, if your name's not Ted Williams, Jimmy Fox, Mel Ott, the population reports are 200, low 200s, high 100s. So finding these guys isn't easy. I found the Buck McCormick, and I found the Dahlgren. The weird thing with the Dahlgren is he was on eBay on an auction just last week. I was willing to go up to $120 on my bid. I won the card for $57. So that's kind of where you want to say, gosh, why don't you just wait for all these cards to show up on eBay and you can bid on them? Because it just doesn't always work that way. So a couple of days later, I was still on eBay, and on my search engine or my watch list, I put 1941 play ball Buck McCormick. I don't put the number 5 because then I get all these PSA 5 cards showing up of every player from the 41 play ball set. So usually what I do is, like in the case of Babe Dahlgren, I'll put 91 41 play ball, number 49, PSA. That way only his graded cards pop up. Can't do that with McCormick because, like I said, if you put 5, then every PSA 5 in that set will show up. So this time I decided just to type in 1941 play ball Frank McCormick or Buck McCormick. And all of a sudden this PSA 5 showed up. I go, whoa. But the guy wanted $150. And I looked up VCP. The last card sold several months ago for $81. And I realized I want the card. I'm willing to pay a little over VCP. So I made an offer of $100, explaining to the seller on eBay that the last card sold for $81. He countered 120. I countered again at 100 with a note saying I can't go over $100. 2 minutes later, he rejected my offer. So I was a little stewed, and it was early in the day, so I made breakfast, I took a shower, and I sat there thinking about it, and I go, you've only seen one Buck McCormick card, and that was on Clean Sweeps Auctions. They have a PSA 7 for $275, which is $100 over what I want to pay. And I go, no, I don't want to do that. I want this card. So I decided just counter at 115. I countered at 115. He took it. So I ended up getting these two cards for my set. I am now down to 8 cards, and I got a little bit of a trek, which I'm going to explain to you as soon as I turn the camera around. And we'll talk more about this 1941 play ball set. All right, I'm back, and I was going to share my screen with you, but I'm still so technically awful that I'm just going to have to talk to you guys about this. So I am down to 8 cards left on this 1941 play ball set, and just I wanted to give you guys just tell you what I'm up to. When I first started this set, I selected the 1941 play ball set because I thought it would be a fun set to work on. It was a small set, and I really had my heart set on a completely graded set so I could put it on the PSA set registry. No regrets. I'm down to 8 cards. You guys know that. It's getting hard, and there are things that I wish I had known before I started this set. The population report for this is brutal. 1941 play ball has roughly 22,000 graded cards out there in the world. Compare that to 1951 Bowman 10 years later. They have 106,000 cards out there. Compare that 20 years later, 1961 Topps, there are 368,000 graded cards out there. Again, 1941 play ball only has 22. Mike Trout, 2011 Topps update, has 13,000 graded cards. So I'm kind of glad I didn't know this before I started, but it's something you might want to think about before you go ahead and start your own graded set. Check out the population reports, because these 41 play balls I'm looking at, a lot of them are like upper 100s, lower 200s in terms of population. Someone like Ted Williams or Joe DiMaggio, roughly 800, which is a little better. The Hall of Famers tend to be 300 or 400. Guys like Fox and Ott, maybe 500 or 600. So check those out, because I am down to 6 commons, and their population numbers are all around 200. Some of them are like 190. The 2 that I just showed you, Babe Dahlgren and Buck McCormick, those were roughly about 180, 190. So of the 8 that I'm looking for, Bob Johnson, card number 22, Bob Johnson, card number 57, Maury Honovich, and card number 60, Hall of Famer Chuck Klein. Those are readily available on eBay. I am going to try. Actually, one of the cards isn't on eBay, the Bob Johnson card, and I'm going to see if I can make him an offer of 10% off the price he's asking. Hopefully I can get away with it. The Arnovich and the Klein are being sold by the same seller, and I think the Arnovich is a little overpriced. And I am going to see if I can buy those cards as a pair and maybe knock off $50 if I'm lucky. Those 3 cards I'm hoping to get at the end of the year, before the end of the year. I'm looking at 2 other cards right now that are currently online. I want to see if I can get them maybe in a higher grade, maybe a better price. There's a Dutch Leonard card out there in a PSA 4, which is actually a nice card. I think the price is a little high. But I have to admit, if I buy those 3 cards I just mentioned and Dutch Leonard's still sitting there, I might have to pick him up for $135, even though he might be considered over VCP. And that's one of the things I'm also learning when it comes to this set is you kind of have to, you get to a point where you might have to overpay a little. And there was a good example that I just showed you just now where the Babe Dahlgren I got very cheap, where I felt I had to spend a little bit more to get the Buck McCormick card. So maybe I'll get the Dutch Leonard. The next card, Johnny Vandermeer. There was a PSA 2 out there. The price doesn't bother me. I just want to see if I can find something better than a PSA 2. I might have to settle for a 2. I think there's a 5 or 6 floating around out there, and they want several $100s for it. And I'm still debating about that. The next 2 cards are both available. I'd like to see the price come down. There's a Cecil Travis card out there that's very nice. I would say it's authentic. It's an authentic card. I would say because of the autograph. He autographed it. I think it would be a PSA 4, and the price is $180. I don't know if I want to spend that yet. What do you guys think? And then the next to last card would be George Case, card number 69. Arguably the hardest card I have seen to pick up in this set. There is currently a PSA 7 available. They're asking $275, which I think is a lot. I lost a PSA 6 or 7 once earlier this year on eBay. I bid $160. I didn't come close. So I have to debate whether, again, if I'm down to 1 or 2 cards, do I just chomp on the bit and buy this George Case? And the last card I need is Ted Williams. And I'd like to try to get that in a PSA 2 or a PSA 3. I'd like to try to buy that in person at a card show. I'm not against looking at eBay or another website. There is a website that has one right now that I really like in a 3, but I'd like to see him drop his price, maybe $500. Whether I can get that down, I don't know. And I'll be honest, the Ted Williams card is probably either the last 1 or 2 cards I want to get. I feel if I get that now, that might set me back with the other cards I'm currently looking at. So I'm kind of looking at trying to make Ted Williams like the last card or the second, the third last card, one of those two. So that's where I'm at. I'm at 8 cards. I kind of want to get you guys' opinion though. Should I just take my, people say take your time, and it's like, and you're right, be patient. But I've also learned from talking to other collectors and dealers out there who I told what I'm up to, they're kind of like, if you see a card, you buy it. And that's something I might have to do. So I just wanted to get your guys' feedback, because these cards aren't popping up at card shows. And the Ted Williams will, but the other cards, it's a rarity. It's a rarity when they pop up on eBay. But when I do, I try to win them. So give me your thoughts. If you were down to 8 cards and you weren't, you're in the mood to spend $150 to $200 a card, except for the Ted Williams, would you just start buying them and just get this out of the way, or would you take your time? So I just wanted to run that past you guys tonight. If you stuck around with me this long, it's getting late. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.
It's a beautiful day for a ball game.